So I had a free day while I was staying at Elk Mountain, which is right next to the Medicine Bow National Forest. And so I wanted to find something that was open in that national forest that I could explore. So I sure enough did. I found out that the Snowy Range Scenic Byway is open and we are on our way. But not before we get to pass through some truly beautiful scenery. I will tell you, the way that the sun comes through the clouds to change the colors is just so magnificent and magical. It doesn't look the same at any turn, and it is so beautiful. So while we're cruising along here, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Snowy Range Scenic Byway. It is also known as the Wyoming Highway 130. It is a scenic drive through the jaw-dropping vistas of the Snowy Mountain Range and Medicine Bow Peak. The Medicine Bow Peak is the highest mountain peak in southern Wyoming. This scenic byway can be found by taking a quick detour off of Interstate 80. While the range has been known for its adventurous activities such as camping, fishing, hiking, biking, climbing, wildlife viewing, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, and cabin getaways, we will only be driving through the range. The byway, known as the Great Sky Road, is the second highest mountain pass in Wyoming. The peaks that live in this range are estimated to be 2 billion, with a B, billion years old, and with even older rocks existing beneath them. Mind blown. So what you guys have been watching is me climbing up to the range. So you'll notice in the beginning there was no snow on the ground, and then you see some scattered areas where the snow's melted a little bit. This area did see a blizzard right before I showed up, so it got some fresh powder. So you will see the higher up I get, the thicker and deeper the snow is as well. So this land also has a really rich history dating back estimated 8,000 years. It is believed that ancestors of the Plains Indian tribes inhabited this specific region. Some of the tribes that inhabited the area are the Northern Arapaho, Oglala Sioux, the Northern Cheyenne, Eastern Shoshone, and the White River Ute tribes, all of which are known to have frequented this area. Look at all that snow. So, as mentioned, there has been recent snow, so not all parts of the park are open. So we have 3 different areas that we are going to be hitting today, and one of which is Libby Flats. The other one is the Snowy Range Observation Point, and we are going to stop at Lake Marie to see what we can see there. Basically, just a good old day of Meredith winging it. So we have a few minutes before we get to Libby Flats. So let me tell you a little bit about Libby Flats. It is the highest point in the Snowy Range Scenic Byway. It is 10,847 feet above sea level. When you are standing up at the observation deck or observation area to the south, you can see Colorado's Front Range and Rocky Mountain National Park. To the southwest is the park range of the Route National Forest, and to the immediate west is the Snowy Range, which is why we're up here. But it is the Snowy Range, Sugarloaf Mountain, and Medicine Bow Peak. We are almost there, so just sit tight for just a few seconds longer. Here shortly, you're about to see the Snowy Range come into view. Look at that. So when I stopped and got out, this is what I saw first. Snow, footprints in snow, more snow. And guess what? There was no clear trail. these were the shoes that I chose to go on this sightseeing adventure with, thinking it was going to be overlook stops. If you judged me for them not being tied, they are almost never tied, and we walked through this in them. If many of you just said, Meredith, Brooks are made for running. Yeah, well, I don't do that in them either, so I mostly own them because they're pretty. Now, if you just said, Meredith, were you maybe ill-prepared for this adventure? I would go with absolutely. And you know what? Some of you have this little voice in your head whenever you're like, oh, this could be a bad decision. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And then you decide not to do it. I don't have that. So if I see something and I'm like, this is a poor choice, I go ahead and go full speed ahead. And so that's what we did in this scenario. So I was going to leave the wind sound in this video so y'all could hear how loud it was, but I got cold just even listening to it. I was a popsicle up here on this observation point. Off in the distance is Rocky Mountain National Park, and then you have the Route National Forest, and then we're coming to the west of the Snowy Range and Sugarloaf Mountain. And the Sierra Madre Mountains. Now we're off again. We are headed off to find the Snowy Range observation point. And I would like to say that it was harder to find than I thought it was going to be because it wasn't super clearly marked. That was probably the sign right there. Ooh, look at how pretty. Welcome to the Snowy Range, my friends. I just love how this one cloud that came and sat right over the top of it completely changed the way that it looked for just a few minutes. So I get down to the bottom of the hill, and this is what it looks like from there. So crazy. Anyways, I was off to go see what I could find at Lake Marie, and I found these two clowns on the side of the road. I guess maybe they were sightseeing too. I don't know, but I picked up Noodles and Bubbles and gave them a lift. So I ventured off to Lake Marie, and again, in my terrible shoes, the path was not clear at all. So I was literally walking in 6 inches of snow in my untied Brooks. Again, poor choices. I could have stopped and tied my shoes right then and there, but why would I do that? So Mirror Lake is somewhere real close to this. I think down a trail, but there was no clear trail. And there were no clear feet print either going that direction. So I chose to just get in the car and move on to my next adventure. So the Scenic Byway ends in Saratoga. Since I will be arriving there around lunchtime, I will probably pop in and eat somewhere and then decide if I want to hit these Saratoga hot springs. I have been so cold. Coming off of the range, I was freezing. And so it would take a lot for me to change into my swimsuit and get into a hot spring and then get out and be freezing again. Those of you that know me very well know my mind was made up right there. I do not like being cold. So we do have a few more minutes before we find out whether I decided to go to the hot springs or not. But don't go anywhere because we do have a pretty cool little animal sighting that is coming up shortly. Until then, enjoy this pretty drive. Here it comes. Just keep your eyes focused on the middle of the road as we head around this curve. This is where you're going to meet Hansel and Gretel. That's right, these two little deer that thought it was a good idea to play in the road. So I immediately hit my brakes so they knew I had no intent of accidentally running them over and decided to stay still until they decided to go back off and play in the mountains. Man, the way that the sun just hits the terrain is so pretty. I know I've said that already, but I'll probably say it a million times more because it is just so beautiful. The way that it comes through the clouds and really makes the colors of the earth vibrant and beautiful and alive. I'm going to let you guys watch that awesomeness for a little bit, but don't worry, I'll be back. I arrived in Saratoga around lunchtime, so I decided to take myself to the Snowy Mountain Brewery. This is the third oldest brewery in Wyoming. After eating, I decided to go ahead and head back to Elk Mountain. It was time for the dogs to be let out. And look at this bar stool. Y'all, it was the coolest thing ever. It was also the coldest thing I think that I have ever sat on. Overall, it was a great day in the Snowy Mountain Range. And guess what? You can wear Brooks in the snow.